If you watch my channel regularly, then you know that I am very skeptical of the hype new gear gets. There are certain corners of the audiophile community that continually overinflate measured performance of products. There are other places where subjective experience is given all credit, and how something makes you feel is enough justification to buy it, even when the product itself has a tenuous connection to reality. My position is this: people should employ a combination of subjectivism and objectivism with an eye towards critical assessment. In the last several months, I have been unforgiving of topping and SMSL products. I refuse to make excuses for their marketing shenanigans and unimpressive features. But about a month ago, Shenzhen Audio reached out to me and asked if I would review the newest topping product. They said it was just about to be released. I was curious and said yes. Shenzhen Audio sent me the topping EX5. This is a $350 amp DAC with balanced connection. Reports say that the EX5 is a collaboration between Shenzhen Audio and topping. Does the EX5 offer enough to the average audiophile? Topping evidently pulled out a lot of stops for the EX5. In this product, you get dual implementation of the ES9038 Q2M DAC. This is the mobile version of the 9038 and draws less power. To put things into perspective, the EX5 has the same DAC as the Dragonfly Cobalt, NX4, Topping D50S, Iyun X8, and the Soncause LA-QXD1. Frankly, this DAC is used quite frequently in Chinese products. It is reliable and neutral, assuming the individual manufacturer does not affect sound alterations. The EX5 has full audio resolution support, including DSD-512. It does MQA decoding. It has Bluetooth 5.0 reception, supporting every popular codec: AAC, aptX, aptX HD, aptX low latency, and LDAC. The EX5 has both a quarter-inch and XLR headphone output. It has balanced XLR and RCA DAC output as well. The voltage from each is 4 VRMS and 2 VRMS. The XLR gets the 4, and the RCA, respectively, gets the 2. From what I can tell in the marketing material, it looks like the headphone output section received 2 VRMS, so XLR and single-ended will output the same amount of power. Topping says that the EX5 will provide 1.3 watts into 32 ohms. The EX5 is built on a metal chassis. It has a similar design language to that of the A30 Pro and the D30 Pro. The EX5 feels sturdy and, in fact, is pretty compact. The front panel houses the volume knob, which also doubles as the menu selector. The XLR and quarter-inch headphone outputs are on the front, next to the dated but still usable LCD screen. The EX5 has 4 selectable output modes. You can have the EX5 output only for headphones, or only for RCA, or only for XLR, or for RCA and XLR simultaneously, but without the headphone output. Topping includes everything you need to get this product connected. You'll get the power cable, something that the so-called premium amp manufacturers refuse to include, a USB cable, the Bluetooth antenna, a quarter-inch headphone adapter, and a remote. The remote, sadly, continues to be the generic one that Topping and SMSL use all the time. If there's one curiosity with the EX5, it is the implementation of the XLR headphone output. Most people think of more power when they think of an XLR connection, so to include it in the EX5 without more power than single-ended is a bit confusing. I really wish Topping had implemented an XLR input. That way, if someone wanted to use 4 VRMS signal from another DAC, they could. I really cannot fault Topping, however. I have never seen a DAC amp combo that provides both an XLR DAC signal output and an XLR DAC signal input. With all this in mind, I have to say that the EX5 appears to offer a lot. The concerns I mentioned are things that you should consider in the total analysis, but are not particularly limiting. Topping does not say what the EX5 is supposed to sound like. Is it neutral, warm, or analytical? To figure out the performance and sound signature, I set up a couple of testing parameters. To test the DAC section alone, I plugged the EX5 into my MacBook Pro via USB. I connected the EX5 to my Sterling SHA-4 using an RCA to quarter-inch cable. The SHA-4 is a powered 4-channel headphone amplifier and allows me to control volume on 2 separate sources independently, and it lets me control volume on 4 headphones individually. I compared the EX5's DAC section to the LA-QXD1, which is a neutral DAC. I also compared against the hifi Zen DAC. Both of these devices were connected to my PC. For the DAC-amp combo performance, I compared the EX5 to the Schiit Magni Heresy connected to the Soundcause. I also compared against the RME ADI2 DAC, the JDS Labs Element 1st Generation, and the FX Audio DAC X6. All of these devices were connected to a passive AB switch. For all tests, I used the Olo S4X and Avantone Planar, which are some of the most neutral headphones I've ever heard. Let's get started with the DAC-only performance. Now recall, I compared the DAC section of the EX5 to the Soundcause and the Zen DAC. My overall impression is that the EX5's DAC implementation is neutral. Switching back and forth between the EX5 and the Soundcause, I could not hear a difference. The bass, mids, and treble all appear to have identical tonality. Altering volumes did not change the impression. There was no difference in clarity. I did not have a more magical experience on the EX5, nor did it appear that the EX5 had greater dynamics. In perfect honesty, the Soundcause and EX5 would be indistinguishable in a blind test. However, when we turn to the Zen DAC, there is a noticeable difference in sound. The Zen DAC has a bit more mid-bass emphasis, marginally more sibilance and treble accentuation. The deviation was not night and day, but in an A/B test, you can hear it. The EX5 has a little bit more clarity overall compared to the Zen DAC. For the sake of entertainment, I also compared the EX5 against the Monolith THX Portable. The Portable has an analytical sound signature, and I wanted to confirm that I could hear this difference when compared to the EX5. And, sure enough, the THX Portable presented less bass emphasis, more treble emphasis, and a bit more sibilance. The THX Portable seemed to have a bit more clear presentation than the EX5 as well. None of the DACs had instruments off timbre. Now, let's compare the combo. First, I compared the EX5 to the Heresy and the Soundcause stack. I plugged the stacks into my passive AB switch. I volume matched as best as I could. After over an hour of close listening of various genres, I could not hear a difference. The Soundcause and Magni stack had the same sound performance as the EX5. I also compared against my RME ADI2 DAC. The RME appeared to have a bit more clarity in every track I listened to. There was a noticeable, though not necessarily night and day, difference with instrument separation. The RME just had a bit more of it. Vocals on the EX5 seemed to be a tiny bit recessed in comparison, while on the RME, vocals typically had a bit more separation from instruments, and they were nearly always clearer in the mix. I next listened against one of my favorite amp DAC combos, the JDS Labs Element 1st Generation. It was very difficult indeed to hear a difference between these products. There were some occasions where I thought that the Element provided slightly less clarity and separation among instruments, but this was quite inconsistent. Whatever differences could easily be attributed to improper volume matching. Finally, I compared the EX5 against the FX Audio DAC X6. Honestly, it was really hard to hear consistent differences between these products. However, the EX5 appeared to have a bit more clarity and vocals were marginally easier to pick out in a mix. The DAC X6 had a bit of extra sibilance and very marginal emphasis in treble. The alteration was not significant but noticeable in this A/B comparison, although not necessarily with every track. What is the overall conclusion? There are several points I want to emphasize. First, the DAC section of the EX5 is neutral. I could not hear any difference between it and the Soundcause LAQ-XD1, and minimal differences when compared to the Element and the DAC X6. I heard the biggest difference when I compared the EX5 to the RME. Second, the amplifier section of the EX5 does not seem to add coloration. It is as neutral as the Heresy and almost identical to that of the Element. Third, one oddity I found is that the EX5 does not automatically switch from pre-output to headphone out when you plug a headphone into it. This feature is found in other products, and the fact that the EX5 does not have this auto switch capability seemed a little bit out of place. Finally, I want to make a brief comment about DAC coloration. From time to time, I am told that every new DAC or every new product has a different sound. I know you read this sort of stuff in forums, and with the way reviewers continually tell you how amazing a new product sounds, you may get the impression from them that every product has a different sonic performance. The truth is this: there's a little bit of truth to such commentary, but very, very, very slight. How a DAC chip is implemented is far more important than the chip itself. I have listened to, tested, and used dozens of DACs and DAC amp combos from various companies. I have heard products from all sorts of price brackets. I may be among a small group of people saying this, but I'm going to keep saying it. Newer products do not have different sound signatures just because they have newer DAC chipsets. That is total nonsense. Moreover, unless your DAC has a significant deviation from neutral tuning, it is unlikely you will hear an immediate difference. You may think you hear a difference, but that's what a passive A/B switch and honest critique is for. In short, the EX5 is a neutral-sounding product. If that's what you're looking for, then you'll find it here. If you want a more analytical or warmer sound signature, then you'll need to explore other options from hifi, Monolith, Earman, and perhaps alternative brands. Topping says that the EX5 has 1.3 watts into 32 ohms and 140 milliwatts into 300 ohms. That is a dramatic decline in power output if you ask me. I don't understand why Topping did not include a measurement for 150 ohm headphones so we have a better idea of the power roll-off. As usual, ASR got a chance to measure this Topping product. ASR found that the EX5 outputs 134 milliwatts into 300 ohms and 1 watt into 33 ohms. Both of these measurements are with high gain. The 300 ohm measurement is fairly close to what Topping advertises, but the 33 ohm test is way off the mark. If ASR's measurements are accurate, then the EX5 is missing 300 milliwatts here. I don't know about you, but this is concerning. Those 300 milliwatts must have gone someplace. Either ASR's measurements are wrong, or somewhere between marketing and shipping the product, the EX5 went on a Jenny Craig diet and lost 300 milliwatts. Of course, as usual, ASR did not point out this discrepancy. This is just unfair. The 1.3 watts is a major selling point for Topping, and we're not getting that, at least according to ASR. I emailed Shenzhen Audio and asked them about this. I provided a link to the ASR measurements. The Shenzhen Audio representative got back to me within a few hours. She spoke to Topping, and Topping said the following. Topping evidently believes that the ASR measurements differ because of different measurement conditions. According to Topping, the power output will be different if you use 1% distortion at maximum output versus 0.1% distortion at maximum output. I asked the Shenzhen Audio rep for additional clarification. I asked her if Topping was saying that higher distortion threshold is what they used to achieve their purported 1.3 watt measurement. The rep responded and said, yes, if you can accept higher distortion, then you'll get greater power output. So, there you go. I will let Topping and ASR figure out who's right and who's wrong. It would be nice if ASR actually addressed these discrepancies in its product measurements in the future. On a side note, Topping's explanation raises further questions. I've looked at both measurements data, and I just do not see the connection Topping is trying to argue. Anyway, the power output story is murky. Let's see if the online measurement guru will actually address this. The power output discrepancy aside, the real question is whether the EX5 has enough power for most headphones. Yes, it does, particularly at high gain. Strangely, you have to use the remote to access the gain setting. I could not find a way to activate high gain through the volume knob selector. Keep that in mind if you buy the EX5. It does not matter if you connect through quarter-inch or XLR. Both connections should provide exactly the same power output on this product. The EX5 had no difficulty whatsoever driving normal impedance headphones like the Allo Audio S4X. Every planar magnetic headphone I have also got more than enough power, and this includes the Avantone Planar, all of my audeze headphones, and the hifi Man Sundara. The Barodynamic T1 2nd Gen, which is 600 ohms, also received sufficient power. However, I have to emphasize that it seemed that the T1 did not get peak power, as when I compared it against the Magni Heresy, I could hear a bit more clarity. The Heresy has 215 milliwatts into 600 ohms, by the way. Technically, you can use the Modhouse Argon with the EX5. Yes, this headphone will get sufficiently loud, but they also sound a bit veiled and lack bass clarity. This specialty headphone does need more power. Modhouse recommends 1 watt into 50 ohms, and Fostech says up to 3 watts. The bottom line is this: the EX5 will have plenty of power for the vast majority of headphones. There are some who demand more and more power for headroom every time a new product is released. Those people need to be muted. The key is that you understand what your headphones need, what headphones you may purchase in the future, and how much power a particular amplifier actually has. It requires you to look at your headphone specifications, do research outside of forums, and sometimes even contact the headphone manufacturer. That being said, if you want more power, then the Magni is definitely the better choice for that. If you want raw power for cheap, the Magni has it. And since both the Magni and the EX5 sound the same, you won't be missing out on any special sound profile. In fact, you could theoretically opt for the shit Magnius for overwhelming power, then combine it with the Modi 3. Your overall price would be around $300, not including tax and shipping. Or you could opt for the hifi Zencan and Zen DAC combo for slightly different sound signature, but more power than the Magni and the EX5. I don't want to beat around the bush. If you're the type that wants triple-digit power output numbers and the high impedances, then you have options. If all you want is a product that can drive your specific headphones, then do your research. The EX5 will likely have the power your headphones need. The EX5 has both MQA decoding and Bluetooth. I do not subscribe to Tidal. I have already done numerous tests of Tidal service and cannot justify its overall cost. But if you are in the Tidal ecosystem, then the EX5 should fit right in. According to the marketing material, the EX5 is an MQA renderer and can play MQA Studio files. Bluetooth is a welcome addition. I have made my opinion about Bluetooth clear in the past. It is not high resolution. It is lossy signal. Unfortunately, companies use severely misleading marketing to suggest you're getting constant bitrate over Bluetooth. That simply is not true. I think of Bluetooth as a convenience, and as a convenience feature, it should be included in products. The EX5 has a perfectly agreeable integration with Bluetooth. You get all codec support, including LDAC. Connection is simple. You merely have to switch input to Bluetooth and the EX5 will start pairing. I was not able to get more than one device paired to the EX at one time, so it appears there is no multi-point connection. You'll have to unpair from one source if you want to pair to another. As for Bluetooth connection, it's exactly the same as with any other Bluetooth device. The signal will drop with distance and obstacles. You can control volume over Bluetooth through both the EX5 and the source device. Overall, the MQA and Bluetooth functions are good additions. You may not use either, but I'm happily surprised to see them here. Exceedingly expensive DACs usually don't have this, and I have derided Topping and SMSL for their obtuseness in this regard. It's good to see that Topping and Shenzhen Audio added useful features into the EX5. Now, speaking of useful features, let's talk about useless features. The EX5 has DAC filters. They do nothing, as with every DAC that has DAC filters. DAC filters are marketing gimmicks, and you should not expect to hear anything switching among them. I have repeatedly said that DAC manufacturers are giving us far too little for the price of their products. Every time Topping or SMSL release another expensive DAC, fanboys crawl out of the woodworks to hype it. But what they're actually doing is reinforcing to these brands that you can rinse and repeat and people will just keep buying. I think people should not spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on individual components. Why would you want to spend $400 on a standalone DAC that does the bare bones stuff? No MQA, no Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi, and they support the same audio resolutions as far cheaper options? Why spend $500 on a hand-built amp with questionable warranty and return policies from Europe? Yeah, there is a point after which spending this type of cash is enjoyable. And that point is when you've got so much disposable income that you don't care. But on this channel, we have a different perspective. The vast majority of audiophiles have limited incomes. When you have to skimp and save to buy a lower-tier hi-fi man product, then you must be careful about the nonsensical hype machine. And even if you have a comfortable spending limit, you might be skeptical of the constant plagiaristic nature of hype content. If you've had enough experience with audio gear, then you know there's very little new under the sun. You may just want something that works. These are the perspectives I use when reviewing and judging gear. Does the gear actually make sense? That is the bottom line. Looking at the topping EX5, I have to say that it does indeed make sense. This is not a perfect device, but it is a logical one. For $350, you get a neat little package with the bells and whistles most audiophiles will want. You get full audio resolution support from standard PCM all the way up to DSD-512. You get MQA and Bluetooth. You get a decent amp section and a perfectly agreeable DAC. The EX5 is plug and play, easy to use. This brings us to value. Yes, I think the EX5 is value. You get plenty here to justify the price. I'd be very hesitant at a higher MSRP, but $350 seems about right to me with a couple of caveats. First, I wish manufacturers would provide two-way Bluetooth signal. The EX5 receives Bluetooth connection, but it can't transmit. I don't know why companies refuse to put this feature in. Second, I'm concerned about the power output measurements. We get two different stories, one from ASR and one from topping. I have no idea who's right or who's wrong, but it is incumbent on both of these parties to clarify the record. At this point, I cannot with any confidence say that the EX5 actually provides 1.3 watts at 32 ohms. It appears that the EX5 probably provides at least 1 watt at 32 ohms, which is the measured response from ASR. Taking this lower number into consideration, I have to emphasize it is plenty of power for most headphones. There are very, very few headphones that need more power than this. When I try to create a comparable stack, I can't do it for cheaper. So while I can use the $100 Magni, I cannot find a cheap DAC with the features that the EX5 has, namely Bluetooth, MQA, and balanced output. If you want a basic setup without the extras the EX5 has, then you can certainly get a cheaper stack. The Shitmodi and Magni together will cost about $200 and will provide perfectly agreeable performance. And you can look to Monolith for a similar setup. Or, if money is an issue, then try the hifi Zen DAC or the FX Audio DAC X6. The point is that you don't have to spend a lot of money to enjoy your content. After all, once you've plugged your headphones into the device, the idea is that you lose yourself in the music. I applaud Shenzhen Audio and Topping collaborating for the EX5. They've brought together a device that performs well and offers enough features to stand out among the crowd in this price category. The EX5 will not blow your socks off. Its sound signature is nothing new. If you want neutral, silent performance, then the EX5 is as good as many other alternatives. In my opinion, the EX5 is a product that Topping should have released a long time ago.